which is actually really important about people using Git to synchronize the app and not working. Okay, so this is an issue that works as follows. Okay, so maybe a diagram will help. It's not due to Windows and Mac OS X. It's due to another phenomenon. Essentially, there is the main web2py directory, then there is the DB that sits somewhere, okay, and then there is these DB files that essentially tell you tell web2py how the tables are supposed to be created, okay. And so when you use web2py in single mode, whenever you do an access, unless you say that migrate enabled is equal to false, so whenever you do an access, web2py does the following. It reads how it believes the tables should be defined, okay, in the database. So this is supposed to correspond to the database. It reads your table's definition in the code, okay, and if the two don't match, it issues configuration commands to the database to create new columns in tables or do whatever is needed, and also it will bring these up to date. No, now this it does for you. Okay. Now the trouble is this: if you, in some way, due to did you use my Git? Who is having this trouble, by the way? You are you using the git ignore file that I gave? Yes or no?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same.
Okay, because you know, this would be interesting to check. I mean, not to blame you, but the devil is in the details, right? Because the problem is that if you check in these files, what happens? Okay. What happens is this. Suppose you check in these files, but not that one. Then the other friend of yours will get these, okay, and there is a DB again, and there is these configuration files, and we may get a copy of your configuration files. So web2py will believe at this point, okay, fine, you know, my database looks right already. But actually, this database was never updated with the right comments. So this is essentially where the trouble comes, okay? So how to solve this trouble? Well, there are various ways, okay? One way is this. You need to ensure that both the database and these files are not versioned. You just version the code. Now you ask the question, if I am already in this trouble, how do I get out of this trouble? Well, there is a very much brute force solution, okay? So unless you have put valuable data in your database, which I guess you didn't because it's just development, is it true? Or do you have valuable data? No. If you don't have any valuable data, you can simply delete these all because web2py will recreate it. So just, you know, delete everything under the databases directory. And it doesn't work. So you still get an error, one of the two of you?
I do.
Okay, you do. Okay, that's weird. And what is the error?
It says that there's it says one of the tables is already defined.
But it's very strange if you delete the database that you would get that error, because the database does not exist. But you deleted also these files that are in that directory of database.
Yeah, we made sure all static files are updated too.
Okay, we shall take it offline, okay? But generally the phenomenon is this. So generally the phenomenon is due to the fact that the web2py is trying to be very helpful. Now, another approach that you can do, and I do it this way, it's manual, but that's the way I build applications after a while that they have been stable, okay? What I do is this. I have, I turn migrate enabled is equal to false, unfortunately, okay? And then, I write code, and when I need to change the database, I write the comments that I use to change the database in a separate file. It's a text file, but it's versioned. That is called something like database update.txt, something like that, okay? And then, unfortunately, I tell my collaborators, when you merge my branch, please note, before you run it, you need to also use these comments. And my database update file has a very simple format, okay? It contains a line that refers to a commit, just in text. Now it's a text file, but I simply say, for example, Luca, and I can say, I don't know, new grades, which brings me, I'm trying I would like to try to do an experiment with the crowd grader on you. Essentially, I want to compute grades in 2 different ways, and I want you to vote on which version is fairer. I will explain it to you in a short time, okay, as soon as I get time to code it. But at any rate, so look at grades and maybe I add a version number, okay? And then I write alter table and there are these comments, okay? Now I do this because this to me happens rarely enough, no? Because my code base is fairly stable, and so if this happens once a week, it's not a terrible problem, essentially. I don't know, frankly, of a better solution. I mean, there are always these synchronization problems in multiple when you have multiple coders in a team. Because the problem is this: that one thing is to version the code, but there are also this environment around you in which your code runs that needs to stay in sync with the code. Another example that I've seen in another place is in a company building on Google App Engine, in which they have a problem not only with the database but with the queues, right? You write a new code, and this code needs new task queues in order to run. And so there is nothing to do, but this task queue configuration needs to be changed manually at some point. You try to version the code, but there are always some instructions aside of the code, unfortunately. But so your case, though, I'm curious why nuking everything does not solve the problem. So I will take a look afterwards because it should solve it. Okay. So now coming back to the other to the original program, what I wanted to do is to so Apache Cordova. By the way, what does Cordova mean? The city in Spain, I thought, but the city in Spain is Cordoba with a B, as far as I know. So I wonder where this comes from. Anyway, so you follow the CLI instructions okay. So you need to install node.js, which is easy enough to install. Actually, is a package. So you can go to the installation instructions, but to install node.js, basically you click on install, and this will. I'm not doing it because I already did it, but you download a package for Mac or Windows. For Linux, I'm sure that you can do something like apt-get install node or something like that. Okay, so you have to search for the command, but it shouldn't be very difficult. You install node, okay, then you say sudo npm install -g Cordova, okay, and this will install Cordova, and it works very fast, and this installs everything. And now there is a small glitch that I had documented in a window that I have opened, but let me tell you by voice, and then I will post these instructions. Essentially, there is ant, which is essentially a component of make, of the make file, of the make build file, that used to be available on Mac OS X, but then it's no longer available now. Okay. And so there are instructions that I found if you have a recent Mac on how to install Ant. Okay, it looks scary, but it works really well. You have to install Homebrew and then install it via Homebrew, which to me it was scary because I try not to modify my Mac to match. I mean, now I've gone down the bad path already too often, I guess. But it seems like a very heavyweight solution for installing a small little piece of a make build file, whatever component. But I did it, and it just worked. So if you get stuck, you can get unstuck. After you have done all that, you can create an app. You have to use the Android. Let me magnify a bit since I'm using these. We can follow these. These are things I have already done, so that we can now dive into the sort of more entertaining portion of the work, okay? So you have to create an app, and you have to create this Java class name for the app, okay? Take it, I mean, it's not super serious, meaning that you can change it if you want, but it's a little bit of a pain to change it. So give it a little bit of thought, what you want this to be called. The thing is this, let me tell you some of the implications of that name. That name is the thing that tells Android, well, it's the application ID, essentially. And so when you put it into the App Store for Android, okay, an application is a new copy of an old one if they have the same application ID and they are signed by the same developer, okay? So this is one of the semi-permanent things. There is a very nice page on Android that maybe is worth looking earlier rather than later. Let me search for it and show it to you. It is what can change in Android. There is things that cannot change. Okay, this is a very nice blog that was written that I recommend, because these are the things you wish you had read before you started the work rather than after, obviously. And so the package name is this com.example.luca or whatever you are gonna call it. Okay. If you change that, your application will not have auto-update anymore, will not update from the previous version to the new version in the App Store. Now, the good part is that the package name is not really user visible, but it is to some extent. So it's better not to give it, a completely like a bad choice of a name. Another thing that that you have to do, and I'm not sure I'm going to explain it now, maybe in the next class if there is enough interest. But when you put an application out in the App Store, you can distribute applications in Android in two ways. You can either build a package and put it for download by people, and people who click on that link, if they set up the phone to be able to install any application from any source, okay, they will be able to install it. Okay. This is not the default setting of an Android phone. The default setting of an Android phone is that it only accepts signed applications from some app stores for security reasons. Okay, otherwise you would click on links and they would install applications on you too easily. So if you put your application on an app store, what you have to do is that you have to sign it with a certificate. And the certificate is similar to one of these SSL certificates for websites. It's built and signed with the same exact technology. The only difference is that you are signing it, okay? And the reason for having the certificate, even though you are signing it, is that in this way, another person cannot build a new version of my app to take over via an update mechanism my app on a phone with his version that might contain, malware or whatever. Okay, so it's essentially done for the continuity, and so you have to be careful when you produce that certificate. That will stick with you for a really long time, because you cannot change it anymore. Once I made this mistake, actually, for an app I made, I included in the certificate, for instance, my name, and now I'm not even involved in that app anymore, right? But my name is stuck there in the certificate forever. Because if they change the certificate, I'm not, they wouldn't be able to update anymore. So there are these phenomena. You have to think at it carefully, and then the rest is details. Okay, the Android manifest XML file, you don't need to worry because it is auto-generated. Okay, so you generated this com example hello, or I generated something like EduUCSC Luca package, and then you can give it a human name, hello world. Okay, this name is used basically simply to display at the beginning. Okay, and you can change it via configuration. It's not so hard. Okay, after you do that, you have to go into your app. The app in this case for this person is called Hello. Mine is called Sample App, a lot of fantasy. And you can add platforms. The platforms are oops, what did I do? I magnified the screen and it, okay. The platforms are it's not very good, right? You should keep the place. The platforms are, the devices you want to support, basically. You can add one of them, you can add many of them, as many as you want, okay? Then you can check which platforms you have, yada, yada, and then, you can build the app. Now, you can do Cordova build, which builds all the platforms, or you can say Cordova build a specific platform, and then you can say also Cordova emulate Android, or you can say, and this runs an emulator, but I will say Cordova run Android, and this will run the Cordova application on an Android, okay? And then there are other ways to generate the package file directly, okay? I think they're explained below, okay? adding plugin features, and I think that if one goes, I mean, but that's for later essentially. Okay, so you can package it, and once you package it, you essentially obtain an application that can that you can put on an app store. Okay, so what I want to do now is show you how the code looks like and talk about how the code is built, and which kind of APIs you can do. So and one very important thing we will see is that we will need to add plugin features. Okay, Cordova per se is it used to come with everything included, and it was actually very nice from the programmer's point of view. Okay, because the Cordova libraries gave you in a single shot access to everything from a file API, location, internet, accelerometer, whatever, to everything in a single block. Okay. The only problem is that because they gave you access to everything in a single block, when you produce a package and you give it to somebody to install, the person installing it would be asked, hey, this application requires access to the location, to the internet, to these, I mean, the application needed all the permissions all at once, right? And so you would build an application that maybe all it did was, I don't know, enable you to play a small game, or perhaps, just check in when a store was open, and this suddenly asked for access to your photos, access to the files, access to this, access to that, and it was very annoying, right? So now they have modularized the libraries, so they are called plugins. Okay, so Cordova per se doesn't let you do a lot, but you have to install the various plugins that give you access to the various features of the platform. Okay, and I installed one already, but we can install more. Installing a plugin is extremely simple. You can say, for example, there is on the web a listing of plugins, and you say Cordova plugin add, and then you say which plugin you want. Okay, just for an overview of what we can do in Cordova, we can do everything that we can do via the web. We can present information, etc., etc., and the plugins are. Okay. Okay, there are 816, but what I wanted to show you perhaps are the ones that come standard with the Cordova. Okay, so if you go here, sorry, I'm a bit disoriented by the different screen size. As you can see, come on, where is the documentation? It's a different page from the one I was using. What's happening? Okay. Plugin APIs. So this is a list of the most standard plugins. Okay. There is battery status, camera, console, which means log access, contacts, device, gathering device specific information, device acceleration, compass, dialogues, file system, file transfer, geolocation, globalization. You can bring up additional browsers, media capture, camera, etc. Network information. You can figure out on which network you are, vibration, status bar. So these are the most standard ones. Okay. So I installed already the one for geolocation, so we can look at the information just for the fun of it. Okay. So if you look at the documentation for geolocation, okay, it gives you the name. The name is used in the command before, right? So the command was explained here. Cordova plugin add, and then you give the name. So the name of the plugin is org Apache Cordova geolocation. Okay. So here is the information, and it tells you how it works. Basically, it's very simple. There are 3 methods: get current position gives you the current position. Watch position enables you to attach a listener to the position that will be called whenever there is a position update. Okay, and clear watch means that you clear this listener. Okay, and I would be just using get current position, but we could be using the others as well. But we have to make it simpler. I just use the one-shot one. Okay, so how does your project look like at this point when it's still empty? It looks in this way. Ah, yes, sorry, I had to reboot, and so my editor is gone, but let me bring it up again. I think it's this one. So Eclipse can be used, by the way, to build Android applications, right? But when you use Cordova, you cannot use the Eclipse build method, okay? Essentially, in Cordova, now let me show you how this, well, maybe let me show you using the command line, which I don't have because it's, again, I rebooted. 1 second. So here is the directory structure, okay? So there is in platforms, are all the platforms that I installed. I installed only Android, okay, just to make it faster. In plugins, I have all the plugins I have installed, which is just geolocation, I guess. And in www, okay, there is the HTML code and the JavaScript that I wanted to install specifically as the implementation of my application, okay? The reason I cannot build with Android, but I need to build from the command line is this. You see that this www directory is in parallel, this directory is in parallel to the various platforms for which I develop, okay? So the Cordova build system does something like this. When you say to build for Android, it takes what you have in this general www directory, it puts it into the Android directory, builds for Android, and then it has a package ready, okay? If you try to build for Android from Eclipse, basically you can edit your index.html file as much as you want, and the Eclipse build system will never notice that you actually changed it. Okay, so when you try to build, it will not do anything. It will build fine, but it will never include the new index.html in it. Maybe, you know, if you spend enough time here, there is a way to make it work for sure. But one thing that I learned is that your life is happier if you don't fight the build systems. No, because there are, you know, some obscure machinery, and if you can actually use them without needing to put your fingers in them, you generally can do things in a more efficient way. Okay. So what I do is that I'm going to build from the command line, even though Eclipse, in fact, would be able to build a normal Android apps. Okay, coming back to Eclipse. So here is the structure of my project. Sorry, I have many things open. Let me open the right here. Okay, so this is a sample app from here to here. Okay, it was all generated automatically by PhoneGap. These, when you created the app and you have the platform Android, it creates all these, right? So inside it basically has a template for like a default looking Android application that all it does is open this web browser on your local index.html file that we are writing, okay? So this looks all very standard and you should actually not change it. But here in www, there is this index.html file that I have already opened here. And this is the homepage of your application. Okay, so this is, you know, there is a big comment, and then there are some files that I was writing. Okay, in JS, you can add whatever you want. There is already some index.js there that actually I didn't put there, and I don't know exactly what it contains. Ah, interesting. Okay, so that's where it went, because it used to be that I had to say app initialize in a more explicit way. So this index.js essentially I should have read it before. This is quite interesting. Let's see what it does. It binds some events, so it builds a variable app. It binds some events, bind events function. Okay. I see. Okay. So I think actually I could have modified these in order to build my code, but I didn't. So I just wrote some code directly in index.html. Okay. I think maybe there is a slightly more optimal way of doing things than the one I'm using, but it doesn't matter so much. Okay. So yeah, maybe I should have put there the code and combined it, but let me maybe do it for later. Now, let me tell you what I do here. So here I'm defining a function on success and a function on error that will display the location. So this is not very important, but the important trick is this. You have to do this function. So this is the body of my page, okay? And I say that when this body is loaded, you need to call the onload function, okay? This is to ensure essentially that some JavaScript is executed only when the page is loaded. So when the page has finished, when the headers have passed essentially and all that. So when the page is loading, okay, then I call this function onload. When this function is called, I do this. I add an event listener for the event device ready that will call on device ready. So why all this business? The problem, and I think one of the only sort of difficult traps of code is the following: that when this application starts, there is a sort of complicated sequence of events. First, there is the Android code that starts running. Then it starts to create a view in which to display the browser. Then the browser code starts executing. Then the browser code starts loading this HTML and JavaScript, etc., etc. Okay, and in the background, the problem is that while in parallel this web renderer is coming up, in the background, the Android code is written in Java. This is part of the code of a platform. Is doing some initializations. It needs to initialize whatever plugins you might have to the initial state. It needs to check, where the file system is. There are a few operations that it needs to do. And so the problem is that you have to essentially ensure that your code starts running only when two different things happen. One is that the initialization in the underlying platform has already taken place. And the other one is that your web page has finished loading. So what we need to do is this semi-complicated looking thing, that is this. When the page has loaded, and we detect it because the body onload has loaded, okay? So when the page has loaded, we start an event listener that is onload for the device ready event. That device ready event is actually sent from the rest of the platform, from the underlying platform, if you will. And it will tell you, hey, yes, we are also ready, okay? So essentially, when you receive when you receive this device ready event here, okay, the listener is called on device ready, and it is this one, okay? So once we are here, we are really ready to do stuff, not before. So this is, I think, one of the complications of this platform. And in fact, there is an additional complication that I had opened on a documentation page, but I hadn't, I lost it due to the reboot, but I will find it again. because jQuery also has a method of detecting whether you have finished loading. And I wonder, I'm not sure, but I wonder whether we have to worry about that as well. I hope not, but I'm not 100% sure, okay? Let's try not to worry, and if we run into trouble, I will follow the advice on that page. I pointed to it in the helper that I gave you. So essentially, there is all this business, you know, of checking that the thing is really ready for work. Now, once we are ready for work, there used to be, a lot of this code that I gave you before, in particular this index.js and the code here, this code was part of the default that Cordova generates for you. Okay, so you don't have to use this. Whenever you generate an app, Cordova builds that and puts that code already in place. Okay, so now instead, I removed the alert ready, and I decided to use the navigator for geolocation. Let's see how the navigator works. If we go to the documentation page for the navigator, for the geolocation, you will see an example in which we have to call get current position with one or more callbacks functions. And these callback functions are called if you succeeded, if you failed to get the location, or if you want more options. Now, for Ajax, most of you in your homeworks are using only the success callback, okay? Because you are doing a call to the server, and if it succeeds, you want to do something. If it doesn't succeed, quite often, you fail silently. You could actually display a dialog that says, I lost connection with the server. But, often you don't do anything. In this case of location, because there are so many cases in which you may not have the location, I think it's more useful to do to give a warning, and so we do, okay? And so here there is an example that I just copied, in which there is an on-success handler and an on-error handler that show you essentially just make an alert, and we can improve it, okay? I want to improve this code with you, but they essentially just give you an alert on with the data information from the position, okay? So when I put it in the code, I put it in this way. When the device is ready and it's safe to use the APIs, so at this point, I say get current position on success on error, where on success and on error are these two handlers that I defined above. Okay, so what should happen is this. When I launch this application, it should first load the page. Once the page is loaded and everything is ready, it will call for the location, and it will either display the location or an error. Very simple. Okay, then we can improve it. Everything okay so far? So let me build it, and then we can modify it. So Cordova, right, build, execute, run, whatever. Run. Okay, so now I'm going to give the command. So I wonder how long. No, the auto setup was a projector, not my phone, okay? So, and if I run it, this is putting out a lot of diagnostic information. It's building, the build was successful. Now it will be shipping it to my phone. My phone, I needed to put it into developer's mode, okay? So you need to tap, you need to Google for how to do it. You need to tap 7 times on the build ID, and then it gives you some other menu in which you can turn it on to developer mode. It's some silly thing in order to avoid, non-curious people from putting it in developer's mode. Okay, hey, this was coming up a moment ago. What did I do? Let me try again. Oh, I think I know what I may have done. Okay, so I have a bug. Let me tell you what the bug probably is, but this is a bit unfortunate. I thought that this would just work. So I added this line, okay? Let me try to remove it and then we can put it back. I was trying to load jQuery minimized. That doesn't work, it's a bit unfortunate. Okay. Okay, so this works, and it even came back with the location. And this is just the general page of Cordova. I added that line I love Android simply because I wanted to check at some point when I was modifying index.html, I was modifying somehow the wrong version of it, and so it wasn't building, essentially. So that was what was happening. Now, that line, though, should have been possible to add it. So let me find a moment what the matter is. Let me do another experiment. So, I'm sorry, the switching is a bit complicated, but yes, of course, it was my mistake. Sorry, let me undo the change, okay? Let me show you what the mistake was. It was just my incorrect typing, okay? So, you see, I just forgot this. So the page was not passing correctly. So what did I do? Essentially, my problem is the following, okay? That these alerts are great, but they're not very nice. What I would really like to do is that I would like to have a div in the page that when the results come back, I put this information in the div, not in an alert, okay? That's what I'm trying to do. Now, to access the DOM in a nice way, what I really like is to use jQuery. I just find it has a much more pleasant syntax, and it's also what we have seen in class, okay? But unlike in Web2Py, jQuery does not come with Cordova, okay? Cordova is just the basis of the framework, but then you can choose whatever JavaScript framework you want to use, and so you have to install jQuery yourself. What I did is the following, and in fact now I'll do it even a little bit better. So I installed the jQuery by doing this. If you go to jQuery, okay, there is you can download, and that's what I did. And when you download it, jQuery comes in two versions. So this is true for most JavaScript that you get, by the way. You can get the source version, which is humanly readable, okay? So that you can make sense of what's going on and you can debug it, or you can modify it with jQuery if you need. Or you can get the minified version, which is generally completely unreadable, but it's shorter and takes less space, okay? There are minification compilers for JavaScript. What they do is that they typically try to replace all the names of variables, internal variables, with very short names, and they switch everything to be in a single line. Okay, and the purpose is twofold. One is that you load a much smaller amount of bytes. Okay, and the other is that people cannot reverse engineer as easily your code. So if you're building a production site, if you minify it, it's not really a super hard obfuscation, but at least it becomes a lot harder to make sense of it unless you invest considerable resources. I'm sure that people have reverse engineering tools for minified JavaScript, but to the lay person, it becomes fairly difficult to work with. Okay, so I installed the compressed version simply because it's smaller in this case, not because of any particular reason. Which one did I install? Oh, I installed jQuery 1. I think I made a mistake. I think I really wanted to install these 213. So let me install these, in fact, so I show you how to do it, okay? I just put it into downloads, then I switch back to these, and I say move downloads jQuery 2.1.3 minified JS, and I move it to the www.js directory, okay? Once it is there, I go here and I change the name to 213, okay? .min.js. So this is for, oh sorry, I don't know why Emacs has this idea of okay. Now you know why I don't use Emacs often. I always forget what are the macros in different editors. I mean, my fingers sometimes forget. Okay, I also wanted to use okay, maybe let's give it a miss. Yeah. So I also wanted to use here a version of jQuery Mobile. Okay, that so let me install that as well, and jQuery UI. Why not? Let's install. Well, let's start simply by jQuery Mobile. Touch optimize. So in jQuery Mobile, you can do you can build it a custom version, but we are not gonna zip. So this means it's trouble. We have to. Oh no, did it just do it just here? Yeah, I guess so. Okay, well, we will do it later, okay? So let's first play with these a moment. Now we have jQuery. So at this point, what do I want to do? I want to look at the at these. So what I want to do is this. A general idea is the following. Here we have only one page, so we cannot really switch pages, okay? And instead, both of the web enables us to change pages, and Android enables us to change the screen by saying that we are in a different app, okay? So one thing that I want to have is some way of replicating this mechanism, okay? I want to have some mechanism to have a fake pages, even though in the end, I only really have one HTML page. The very simple way to do it is this, okay? That we can have many divs. One div is one page, okay? And then we can define which divs have a displayed none, and so are not displayed and are nowhere. And there will be one of these divs that has a display yes, and that will be the div that is actually displayed, okay? So I'm making here a div, and ID is equal to div location. Okay, I can close it. And here, I don't know, H1, okay, here is like you are here. Okay, it's not very particularly smart, okay, but then I want to have div ID is equal to like lock output, okay, something like this, and I simply leave it empty, okay. let's start with these and see how this would work. Just as a proof of concept. Now, what I want to change is the onSuccess function first. So here, it's a function that gets the position, and then I want to be able to say, sorry, my window is a bit too small, but I want this div of class app to disappear. So let's try, okay? I want here div.app. You already guessed. How to make something disappear? Well, what is the easiest way? Do something like this. Sorry? Oh, okay. Dot hide may be faster. Yeah. Okay. And oh yeah, actually here at the very beginning, what does do the dot hide? But how? Because so would this work to have not be shown at the beginning? So that initially the other div is not shown. Okay. So now here, when it succeeds, I first hide these, then I take a div lock output, I called it, I think, okay. And I want to put it, in it, let me do it a bit better. So I say string is equal to this very long string, okay. I guess I can. Okay, so I define this variable here. My indentation now, okay, is slightly better. Okay, then I say that I want to put this in that div, and then I want to take the other div, okay, and I want to say div lock div. How did I call it? Div lock. I think this is a silly name. Well, okay, fine. Div lock. Sure, right? Sure should work because it should modify the display attribute, right? Can somebody check and help us? So do you think that this is has some chance of working? Nobody knows. Okay. No. So why not? Where is the other div? Ah, sorry, you don't see the changes I made. Okay, this is peculiar. So you see this strange pattern, right? So the UR here is there actually, but the strange pattern is somewhat unexpected. What I did is, oh, sorry, this is getting very complicated. What I did is this, but it did not have the effect of hiding the other div, apparently, for a reason I don't fully understand. So these didn't seem to have worked. And this does not seem to have worked either. So I think we need a bit of help. Maybe I can say div okay. So do I use, you have the documentation for jQuery in front of you, right? So do I use correctly this dot hide?
Yeah, dot hide is correct. There is an option of options within dot hide, but I don't think they're going to use it.
Okay, so let's see how this works. As as you imagine, the difficulty is that suddenly we have lost a lot of the debugging tools that we used to have for when we develop locally. This is somewhat weird. I mean, it's weird that the other div is not deleted. Empty, right, is a way to empty an element. But it should not work this way. I should simply be able to say hide. Also, let's make this shorter and without funny characters. Because I have a feeling that this is a part of the problem. We don't need all these, okay? Because I don't know that it will be so nice to put some carriage returns directly in this HTML in this way. So let me do it in this way that I think is somewhat safer, and see what happens. Oops, sorry, you can see only one at a time. You cannot see also my screen. No, but it still gives exactly the same phenomenon. So okay, so I think I might be doing a super dilettante mistake. I'm not exactly sure, okay, but I think so. I think the super dilettante mistake might be the following, okay, that I'm loading jQuery, but this information here, no, but this may be called, let me see, I'm not sure it's true, but I'm wondering, can this be called before jQuery is initialized? Because the effect I'm seeing is that whatever I do in jQuery, nothing is happening. Okay? So the HTML is taking place, but the JavaScript is not. And so I'm wondering, is it by chance the case that jQuery is not running properly? So let me try as a solution what I saw in this help blog. Okay, so to find it, Cordova, sorry, I had it ready, but in case I needed it, but it was Cordova device ready jQuery, and there is a result here by this person at IBM that says essentially something like this, that he was running into similar trouble, and so inside the document, he first does the document ready function and then binds the device ready function, okay? So his binding is a little bit different from what we have done, okay? So here, where is it that we add the device listener is here that he does it, okay? So, but instead of doing this, which by the way is poorly indented, okay, it should have been this way. Instead of doing this, let me give some space and see what he does. So he does the following. He first waits for jQuery to be ready, okay? And then he listens to device ready, and when now Cordova is loaded, okay? And at this point, both of them are loaded, and we can actually do what we want. So, and what we want in this case is what we had in this on-device ready. And in on-device ready, we had what? Sorry, where is the on-device ready? Here, this one, okay? So we want to have this. Okay, so this essentially waits for both jQuery and the other thing to be ready. Am I still calling the old device ready? No. So, let me try to cut out these. So, okay, let's look at it a moment now. Now, I have this document ready function there. I have the alert code there that I'm not sure it's used anymore. And I bind the device ready event to this function. Okay, so I have these two binders, one inside the other. This is suspicious to me because what happens if this event is triggered before jQuery is ready? Do I lose it or is it queued somewhere? This I don't know, okay? So I'm a little bit apprehensive that this change will fix the situation, but let's see what this does. Oh, no. What did it do? It's trying to launch the app from Eclipse, which doesn't work, unfortunately. Okay, so let me launch it from here instead. Did it build it or not? Okay, so I admit I don't understand. So how do I debug this? One thing is this, I at least want to know, am I doing this call, yes or no? Because, if I don't even get here, I'm in trouble, okay? So let's try. I am adding a device is ready alert to the place where the two listeners are one inside the other are ready. I'm sorry, the switching, it takes time, but what I did is this. Okay, I added an alert device is ready, and I want to know if that alert is actually called. Because if that one is not even called, then we are in bad shape, okay? If that one is called, to me, this reads as if jQuery should be ready, and also the other should be ready, and then we are simply making a stupid error somewhere in our jQuery, which should be somewhat easier to find. So what happens if I run the code now? If I run the code now, this is the old app, okay? So it will bring the new app now. Ha. You see, the problem is that it doesn't, that's what doesn't run. Okay, so that's a bad situation because we have essentially a quarrel between the two various ready events. So let me try to do another thing. Evidently that blog did not contain the right solution for us. So, but what if I put these at the exterior level, okay? Okay, so if I do this, what happens if I run it? This is so silly. No. So, what are suggestions to fix this problem? I'm essentially undoing some code changes. Okay, so let's see whether this works. Okay, at least we know that we can be here. The other thing I can do is that I can put the script after the code, sort of forcing. There is no harm in doing this. It's not very nice, but. So let's see. Now I should I add again this add event listeners on device ready, and I do an alert I am ready, and then I do the geolocator position, and the geolocator position on success should use this jQuery. I don't know whether this will work, okay, but at least we have narrowed down. Okay, I can also use here something that is sure to work. Alert. I am in the success handler. Okay, so we can essentially figure out slowly what is actually going wrong. Okay, so now if I tell it to run, it doesn't do anything, which might be a sign that I have an error somewhere. Mm. I'm a bit in trouble. I think I need help. So if I So this is the code. I wonder whether to go back to a version that used to work and then build from there, which might be more reasonable. I have a slight fear because I have a reset. Okay. Okay, so let me verify that this works before I go much further. Okay, so this should have done, this should do the old thing. Okay, so this works. We are back at square zero essentially. Okay, and now here, suppose we do something simpler. So let's go by smaller steps, I guess. So here I want to have another div. Actually, let me do something simpler yet, okay? Because I don't know if this div of class app is something that Cordoba believes is special. So let me do this inside a moment. Let me be very skeptical, okay? And I say div class is equal to ID. ID is equal to orig. So this is the original div, okay, in which there is this content. Okay, div. Okay, and now here I can do another div. ID is equal to new. No, like lock for location. Okay, I can close this div, and I can simply write location. Okay, so and all I will want to do is hide this div orig when I get there. Okay, so here on success, the only thing that I want to do is this. I want to change here, and I say, yeah, this is all misformatted. Let me just format it a bit. I want to say something like this: div orig. This is what I called, right? Hide. So will this work? This seems to be a sort of minimal change. So if I do this, It will get the location at some point. And it disappeared. Okay, so evidently there is something here in this background image or so that is caused. So the div of class app is special. I need to find out how to essentially dethrone it from its privileged position. Okay, and I think it's probably in the CSS. You know, if I looked into the index.css, oh, sorry, you're not looking at it, but I'm sure that the problem is that I'm not taking the time here. You see, there is this background image that is defined for the body. Okay, so this is what causes my background, instead of being white, of having this gradient with this particular image in the back. Okay, there must be somewhere in the CSS here that does it. You see, there is this logo PNG, right, for app. I would need to delete these in order to get rid of that. Okay, so it's essentially because I was going too fast in modifying things, but it's here. Okay, now we can leave that. Would you like to leave, or would you like me to eliminate that background image? Should I remove it? As you like. Yes? No? Yes. Okay. So let me just other things might be useful. It's only these that I want to eliminate, I guess, for the moment. Let's try to again do a sort of minimal change. Okay, so this will get rid of that image. Okay, now we know that what we did before that was wrong is that we should not have tampered with these div. Okay, so now I want to. Where does this location come from? It's this one. Okay, so okay, now things are on a more sane basis. So this is location. I can say style is equal to display none, so that when the page comes up, this is actually not displayed. Okay. Sorry? Display. Yes. Thank you. And now, when so sorry, I'm a bit confused. Lock is the new div, and the ridge is the other div. Okay. So now I want to say something like at the end, I want to say div lock show. Okay, this will show it. I can want to say again something like var s is equal to this. Again, you know, I don't like very much that there are cabbage returns there, but let's leave them there a moment just to see if these matters or not. And I want to say, sorry, this is not div.lock, is div hash lock. Okay, div hash lock HTML s. Okay, so let's try this one by stages. Now I go here and I run it. And you know, I removed the background image, and now it's giving us the information. Okay, so now it's giving us the information in this way at the bottom of the screen, simply because I'm taking this huge shortcut of not removing all the rest of the CSS. But what is positioning it there is this CSS that you had seen before in that file. Okay, so essentially from this point on, I can start to build the CSS I actually want to build, and then I can I can play with it with jQuery. Sorry that this was a bit of a rough demo. I did not expect to get into trouble by not being able to use jQuery. So I think I sort of came unprepared to the problem. Okay, But so I have to figure out precisely why I have to do everything in this div of class app. Okay, it may be that this is hardwired, but what I would do essentially as a structure, if I were to build an app myself, would be that in this div, if I have to do it there or else in the body, but I would put a sequence of divs, each one of which represents a virtual page of my app. Okay, and inside those divs, I can essentially write whatever I want with the jQuery that puts the content there. I mean, some content is static, but other content may come from jQuery that is going to fill in some of the information. Okay. I would have a variable in JavaScript global to all these that says which one of these various pages I'm showing. Okay? And when I change value to that variable, I mean, I would write a function that is called switch to page, no, and contains the name of the page, and then I would use that variable to hide the other divs, show that particular div, and and this would essentially have the effect of switching page visually to the user, right? And then you can build the navigation simply as if this was an app in which you can actually go to from one page to the other. Essentially, I would have a function that I build that would be called something like switch page. Okay, I could try to build this function now if you like, with a couple of buttons, but it takes a bit of time and trial and error. So would you like me to do that? Would you like to ask questions? Would you like to do something else? What would you like to do at this point? Yeah?
I just have one small question. There's supposedly going to be a strike on Thursday, so how should we?
Yeah, they told me. Actually, I somehow don't know very much about the strike, meaning that really I haven't read the emails about it. I was just actually I was down for the whole weekend sick, so that's why I was a bit out of things. Is it true that there is a strike?
They're blocking access to campus, by my understanding.
Okay. What do you think we should do? No, okay, this is a very vague question, but I'm open to anything. So one thing one thing I tried was to hold the class nevertheless via Hangouts, and we could do that if we wanted. Another thing is to respect the strike, and then another day that may be convenient to do a catch-up class. And we can do that as well if we like. Another thing we can do is we can say that the class is cancelled, and we do a hangout, but we do a hangout in which we essentially ask general questions and reply to them as sort of extended office hours and chat. Or another thing we can, so let me do the various possibilities, and then we find some way of voting, okay? Because let's say one is a class via Hangouts. Two is a Hangout for questions. Three is reschedule. Four is a class via Hangouts on some other topic. If there is some topic that is mildly related to the class, but for example it is what are topics that could be of interest? I don't know. You can suggest, but for example. I don't know how to build a company out of a product, or what are the various pieces involved in building a company. This could be of interest. Maybe not, because you're not at the stage in which you think it's interesting. Or else, I don't know. How do you? I don't know. You propose in some way, right? Yeah.
WebSockets.
WebSockets, okay, but yeah, that could be one. So, how many people choose? Let's say that you can vote for at most 2, okay? But how many people would vote for 1? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Six for these. Hangouts for questions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. The challenge in this is that you really have to ask questions, you know, because if nobody then, I mean, the advantage is that we could also consider scheduling it not at 8 a.m. if you wanted, by the way. No? just throwing an idea there. I mean, you have been faithful in coming at 8 a.m. every day, but you know, if you wanted, nobody blocks us for doing it 10 a.m. then the bandwidth is infinite elastic, no? So we can really get rid of. So rescheduling. How many of you are rescheduling another day? 0. Yeah, I know. I mean, rescheduling is a mess, right? And for me as well. I mean, we all have scheduled times, etc. Class year hangouts on another topic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Okay. So let's say that we do essentially these, and that if you like, what I want to do is this essentially. I'm gonna try to set this up. I will set up something called Google Moderator, which is a very nice project that Google is letting die. And in fact, I should have suggested as one of your projects to build a version of Google Moderator. But it works extremely well in many situations. It works as follows. You go there is a topic like what should Luca say in class, or like questions from Obama for his after his State of the Union address. I mean, really, Obama used it in some occasions, okay? And so you can go there and you can either ask a question, or you can upvote or downvote existing questions. When you upvote them, it's because you think they're good. When you downvote them, you think that they're inappropriate or they would degrade from the experience of attending the event. For example, if somebody, you know, asks a very controversial or silly question, you know, to the president, they may think that it's just would be a waste of time to hear the president's answer on that, and so people would downvote, right? Because it's it's you know, one of these questions only asked to stimulate controversy, I guess. So if you like, I could use those, so that you can essentially write some questions in advance, and then we can do it. The other thing is, what time should we do it, at 8 or at 10? 8? You have class at 10. Yeah. So we can keep the time the same. I only want to reveal a secret. Maybe I should cut the recording before I tell you this, because it's slightly controversial, I guess.